The Book of Recollections, Episode 29, A Worthy Cause, by Dicesylvania. Okay, I heard you. Things turned a bit bleak last time, so let's switch it up to something more festive, shall we? Even the Book of Recollections gets into the holiday spirit sometimes. Our heroes were mesmerized by the beautiful wooden homes covered by the thick and constant layer of snow that also engulfed the scenery of silver-skinned elves just bustling and preparing the town for the second day of Yule in Winterheim. The Night Watcher's cabin invited them in with its magical chimney blowing a pinkish smoke. Inside, surrounded by shelves filled to the edges with all sorts of fun and ingenious toys, was a tall figure with silvery hair tucked underneath a red hat with white fluffy brim, with calm deep blue eyes behind a pair of half-moon glasses, and the largest smile they had ever encountered, especially towards some strangers. But Lysander randomly bolted back out the door, no explanation, with Jen following in his footsteps to catch him. It was just Leo and Keith. The man introduced himself as Klaus Frostmander and welcomed the freezing guests into his living room to warm up next to the fire with a glass of dense, sweet liquid that they later found out was called cocoa, and were given some cozy sweaters. The two talked about Seraphine and the reasons they were in Winterheim, but Klaus said that no such talks would take place during Yule, for it was a time of celebration, not business. Then the Night Watcher offered them a place to stay, but not before our adventurers agreed to help him wrap up all the gifts that were on display. While the two were busy at work, they noticed one of the Ursa Minor stars getting larger and larger. Klaus took them to the observatory to get a closer look, where they saw a confused golden toolrock and a glowing spiritual entity that very much resembled Adam, both riding in a celestial chariot. While Toolrock explained how he tried to trick the Red King into believing he was one of the Golden Orcs, Adam told them about the ritual he performed to grant him ascension into the astral plane and the opportunity to commune with the stars and his ancestors. Klaus, on the other hand, saw an opportunity and asked Adam to borrow his chariot and deliver all the presents to the kids mentioned on something called the Nice List. He then directed the four of them towards the Heart, the local tavern, while briefly mentioning the World Archive, a place in the middle of Winterheim where all knowledge was kept, but where only the worthy would enter. After the jolly man's departure with the flying sleigh, the four went through the town, guided by the same small boy who showed them the way before. Insisting on giving them the full tour, they went past the tavern, the school, which also doubled as a fish market, the apothecary, the aviary, filled with white owls and ravens, and a dark-haired woman that bore a striking resemblance to Keith, and they finally reached the Yule fire, blazing brightly next to the beautifully decorated Yule tree made out of pieces of wood. Wait, is one of the random trees getting closer? No, it can't be, but it is. Apparently he's Brent, and he doesn't like it when somebody steps on his toes, roots. Slightly acquainted and partially cautious about the tree folk, they continued their tour of Winterheim, but not before scattering a few children, bullying another in the cruelest way. They tried finding out what their problem was, but they only found out his name, Eric, and nothing more. They reached a huge frozen lake, swarming with skating children, and, to their surprise, with ghosts looming from one to another. But the children seemed unfazed, just laughing at them. One of the ghosts passed through Leo, sending him all sorts of dark messages. But the fearless elf remains unscattered. Adam cast a spell and rid the lake of most of them, apart from two, who had taken quite an interest in him. Going back into town, the group decided to split up. Tulrock went to the school where he would meet Sigrid, the school teacher, a strong half-giant who seemed intrigued by Tulrock's presence and appearance, but enjoyed his simple magic tricks on fish while he was helping her gather some more. Keith, Leo, and Brent went to the aviary to be not so warmingly greeted by Inge, a sassy, dark-haired, dark-eyed, big-frost elf who suspected that Keith might actually be one of her kind, even though she was a half-breed. But Keith got little to no answer out of her, so they decided to head downtown, not before Leo negotiated for a beautiful white owl as his companion for the next few days. Bells were heard from the town center, and everyone started gathering round to start the celebration, carrying all sorts of baked goods, while the bards were already tuning their lutes to bring the festive mood to life. Klaus started casting an enchantment that engulfed the city like a dome, brightly colored like an aurora borealis. The group later found out it was for protection against the Shadow Hunters, forces of Obscuro, with Fenrir as chief, that would hunt down and eradicate all they deemed unworthy. They even had a ritual called the Hunt, where a name would be howled in the wind, whomever was called having to respond and face the trial. But the only one who came back after the hunt was Wolfgard, the tavern keeper, who spoke little to none about it. While Tulrock tried to convince a squirrel to find a better burrow than Brandt's ribcage, and Adam went to the skies to commune with the stars, Leo and Kate went straight to the heart, and when they entered the tavern, it was nicely decorated for Yule with 3 branches, candles, and all sorts of garlands. They made their way through the bustling beer-drinking competition towards a burly man with rosy cheeks who looked like he had been drinking everybody else under the table. After many pleas, Wolfgard told them about the hunt, how he lost his crew to it, how their weapons seemed to have little to no effect on the creatures, and how, if Fenrir appeared to offer his blessing, one would do well to take it. He suddenly found himself important in his community, no longer just an orphaned boy. All the while, the dome was slightly flickering, letting in chilling whispers like a dreadful call outside its walls. But the tavern keeper warned them not to leave the dome unless they wanted to be hunted themselves. The group reconvened by the fire, where the night watcher was handing out gifts to everyone. Leo received a music box. Keith got a cozy woolen blanket with pine motifs. Tulrock was handed some harmless magic in the form of a box with tiny orbs that would emit smoke puffs if thrown on the ground. Brent was given a carved bird feeder, and Adam was gifted a pair of gloves that would allow him to once again grasp any object without the fear of burning it. The people then feasted on delicious, albeit small cookies. Probably because Tulrock ate all of the food, confusing the cooking contest with an eating one. Tulrock. But when the Night Watcher decided to use his magic to enlarge the cookies, they grew so big in size that they exploded, giving life to humongous gingerbread men that immediately started attacking the town. But they were no match for our adventurers, who had definitely seen worse than that and quickly made short work of it, with Tulrock enjoying some extra sweet bites out of them. Klaus rejoined the rest of the fighters. Berated by Keith, Klaus blamed the events on his magic being unstable, further proving it when a sitting log randomly turned into a fish. But the townsfolk were quickly returning around the now safe Yule fire, so the Night Watcher, followed by many others, started sharing all sorts of stories to bring back the festive spirit. The group grew in numbers when Jen found her way towards the Yule fire, rejoining her companions. But the whispers were howling in the wind once more, eerily chanting Eric's name. Division quickly set amongst the townsfolk, some wanting to give the boy up, while others trying to protect him, the people even starting a fight with one another over the argument. But Eric was lost in the crowd somewhere, with Leo frantically trying to find and help him. Further away from the mass of belligerent people, he tracked the small footprints in the snow, but hit a dead end near the houses. He asked an old man for guidance, but received no help whatsoever. Leo still suspected something, so he peered into the minds of the people surrounding him, including the old man, who seemed far too anxious about escaping. Leo suddenly tackled him, just to see none other than himself in his grasp, realizing that Eric had been a shapeshifter all along. Downtown, with Frostmander randomly disappearing while making other feisty people disperse, the weakened dome simply shattered, making way for nightmarish creatures to fly above the people. Most of the townsfolk fled, but the adventurers pulled out their weapons and retaliated. A fierce battle began, with reinforcements joining on both sides. But the Shadow Hunters were only after one person, Eric. Eric, now disguised as Leo, was battling the real Chancellor, trying to convince Jen, who successfully defeated a creature stealing its winged mount, to rescue him and help him in the trial against the Shadow Hunters. He also urged her to offer their allegiance to Fenrir, who showed himself in the heat of the battle, trying to convince Tulrock to renounce his faith and worship Obscuro by his side, for he was worthy. But Tulrock, forever devoted to his mentor, adamantly refused. All the while, Adam tried to warn Jen that she was interacting with Eric, not with Leo, but the resemblance was so great she did not believe him. Adam then cast a star on Eric's forehead that would soothe his fears towards the Shadow Hunters, offering him protection. That emboldened him to face Fenrir and beg the Great One to greet him by his side. With a smirk, Fenrir agreed and called off his hunters. However, one follower was insufficient, Fenrir trying once again to convince Tulrock to join him. But the Goliath stood fast and allowed his love of magic to guide his path. Fenrir then turned to Jen, who seemed willing to try, but hearing he would have to devour young Eric whole, she refused. Begrudged, Fenrir grabbed Eric in his teeth and fled, not before threatening them for choosing the wrong side, for when the world would feel the wrath of VIM. After the snowy dust settled, the adventurers were praised for their bravery by the whole town, deeming they had proven themselves to live for a year in what they called the Worthy Cabin. They all humbly accepted except for Tulrock, who was whisked away by Sigrid, the schoolteacher, who was so impressed by his bravery that she wanted to take him on a journey to her home and present him to her father, to which he gladly agreed. However, amidst the rejoicing, a small child alarmed everyone that the Yule fire was slowly dimming and it was only the second day of festivities. A purposeful Brent stepped out of the crowd, full of hope and bravery, and took his place in the center of the fire. A huge pulse enveloped the villages and forests surrounding Winterheim, and Brent went on to fuel the fire for 16 days, way past the Yule celebrations, proving that he was made out of the strongest matter anyone had ever seen. This was the recap for episode 29 of VIM, as told by the Book of Recollections. I am Count Bear, your VIM recap narrator. If you'd like to join us as VIM The Tale of Immortality premieres, tune in on Sunday at 5 p.m. UTC on youtube.com/@Dicesylvania. New recaps drop every Friday evening. And remember, every subscribe keeps the magic alive. Thanks for sticking with us. Good day, good night, and don't let the vampires bite.